Welcome to A Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next. Welcome any new faces. I do this every Friday, or there's always a Friday video on my channel. It's usually always 2 videos a week, and one of them is always on Friday. And this one is just a very casual, chill, catch-up video where I just talk about whatever I want to, primarily books. And yeah, I finished 4 things since the last time we checked in, and it's been a really great reading month. And for those who probably are wondering, I am doing much better this week. It's been a roller coaster of physical and mental health problems this month because February is the worst. It is just not a fun time. But we are more than halfway through this month that will never end, even though it is the shortest. It's the shortest long month of the year. I really like all the books that I've finished. Like, they're not all 5 stars or anything like that, but it's been a strong reading month for me. And we are going to dive into that. First, talking about Girl, Woman, Other. I love this book. We read it for my local book club where we read like literary, historical, general fiction normally. Sometimes I can get them to read like a literary sci-fi or something like that. But this is a book that won the Booker Prize in 2019. And it is wonderful, and I love it. And my book club really loved it. We had 16 people show up, and I think 12 of them gave it 5 stars, and the rest gave it 4 stars. That is an absurd high rating for this particular book club. I've been reading with them for like 7 years. We don't normally all agree that strongly. That said, I totally understand when this book doesn't work for people because it is like a short story vignette narrative framework, which is exactly my type of thing. One day I'm going to make that recommendation video that won't get that many clicks, but it's going to be a real niche recommendation video, and I'm going to be happy that it exists because it is like the recommendation video I need for myself. So if anyone else wants to make that video for me, please do that. But this follows, I think, 12 different women, Black women who live in Britain, and all their stories interconnect. They're all sort of tangentially related to each other, some more strongly than others, whether family or friend ties, or they just all went to go see this play. It's very Love Actually in that way, I guess, especially since I guess it's taking place in London, or at least the big everyone's together scene is in London. And I love it. You're going to get so many perspectives in this because it also spans the 20th century. You have stories of people from the early 20th century, we have modern day, we have people in the 60s. So you get to see different versions of feminism. You get to see different socioeconomic experiences, different historical moments. It's wonderful. You also get different ethnic backgrounds. You're going to have people from the diaspora. You're going to have people who are first generation. Their parents are immigrants, but they are born and raised in Britain. You're going to have people from Guyana. You're going to have people from Nigeria, people from Ethiopia. You're going to have so many different backgrounds. And I think for some people that's a weakness because, you know, it's a long book, but it's not so long that you could really flesh out 12 characters to maybe the extent most people want. But I think she used the space expertly to make me really be invested in these very human and flawed characters. And it's not plot driven. You're just following these people and how they live their lives and how they struggle. And that's another thing. There's a lot of struggle in this book. I wouldn't say it's bleak and devoid of hope, but I would look up some content warnings if you're someone who doesn't like certain things graphically put on page. There's definitely a lot that these women deal with, but I also don't think it's done for the sake of trauma. I definitely think you more just are getting a realistic view of these women's lives. And I think for as far as hope can exist in reality, it does exist here. And the ending is really lovely, and there was some really fascinating conversations we had about the framework of this because the end of the first chapter, we are seeing the main character's play start. And at first you think, well, the rest of these chapters will be the women of this play, and it's not, but also one could argue the whole book is actually just a modern version of the play that all the other characters are watching because of the theme of the play, and it's just, this is where I like literary fiction, because I could just get a lot of it by just reading it on the train. I was completely immersed. I was almost like forgetting my train stops, stuff like that. But if I want to dig into it, it also has so much to dig into, but I don't have to enjoy it. It's like, that's the perfect literary fiction for me, where I can enjoy it just on face value, but I can also richly explore what the author is playing with, because she plays with form. She doesn't use quotation or punctuation, so if that's going to bother you, the audiobook is amazing. I think this is my first 5-star read that's not a reread of the year. It's so good. Anyways, next one we'll talk about is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is a reread for me. I don't know what rating I'll land on. I'll probably have to wait till after I discuss it with Leanna and Alex when we get to that at the end of the month. I think that'll be the last Sunday of the month. We haven't picked whose channel it'll be on, but I believe it'll be that evening if you really want to like pencil that in on your calendar. But also I think I might do a review video because I think all of the negative critiques of this book are super valid. But even like this time going in with that critical eye and knowing what people say and being more familiar with tropes that are used so often and are kind of, you know, exhausting to see all the time as lazy forms of character development, stuff like that. Even with all of that, I really, really liked this book, and it could have just been right place, right time. My mental health was bad, and this type of book is so consumable for me. Like, for me particularly, it's just like, turn your brain off, watch the drama. It is incredibly melodramatic, in a way that I think works for me, but also in a way where it's like, if I thought for a minute I was supposed to take anything seriously and like actually be super critical of it, I would hate it. Does that make sense? I don't really know. But that said, I think the critiques are all valid. I think they're all things that are flaws of the book. So part of me wants to do a review video of like discussing those things, but also discussing like trying to figure out why it didn't bother me as much as it maybe should. And also kind of, I think sometimes people bring up valid critiques and don't stretch the critique further. Like, in particular, there's a critique of the female characters, which I don't disagree. I think the female characters are not super well developed in this book, but I also don't think the male characters are very well developed. I think characterization was not a focus of this book at all. But man, and like, it's the definition of like tell, don't show, and I love that. Like, I don't know. There's a lot in this book that I totally see why people don't like it. But it reminded me that I really like reading, and you know, and my brain's been in like a weird place, and physically reading has been really hard for me, like probably since November, and I just sat down and read this book. It kept me up at night. I wanted to be reading it. I didn't go to the audiobook because I enjoyed being in my head reading this. So this Girl, Woman, Other, and the book I'll talk about next have really like revamped in me like physically reading, because I've just like been able to fall into the sentences in a way that's usually really tricky for me. So I don't know. I might do that review video if I can get some notes together and feel confident about talking about it. But if bare minimum, there'll be a live show discussion at the end of the month somewhere. So that happened. No idea what I'll give that. I think minimum, it's a 4-star for me. But I haven't decided because when I first read it, it was a 5-star. But that's when I gave everything like 5 or 4 stars. And like the difference would have been like compulsible readingness, like how much did I want to be reading it, and like I read Red Rising in like 2 days last time as well. So yeah. But the next one, this was my mood read so far of the month. Hopefully I can squeeze in another mood read because we're trying to be better about that. But I decided that I would read this book by T. Kingfisher. Is it Bryony? I don't know if that's how you say her name. And Roses. And this is one of her first published works under this name. It's really confusing trying to figure it out. But this and The Seventh Bride, I believe, came out in 2015. And when I was trying to look online, in terms of the T. Kingfisher pen name, this is one of the earlier ones written for adults. Like, I know there's also kid stuff. I'm still figuring it out. But regardless, people had always been telling me about this one, like on my Dark Fairy Tales recommendation video, people bring this up because it's Beauty and the Beast retelling. And then in my Escape romance recommendation video from a couple weeks ago, people kept bringing up T. Kingfisher. And I remembered that I wanted to read this one. And so I was going to give it from my library, and then Evie was a sweetheart and sent this to me for Valentine's Day. It arrived yesterday on Valentine's Day. I filmed these on Wednesday. I finished this like 10 minutes before sitting down to film this with you guys. It is pretty short, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so it has incredibly comfortable pacing and plotting. So you like, I don't know, I think knowing the pacing and plot of something helps you read it faster because you know what beats are going to happen. But even though it's incredibly comfortable, like, it is really pulling from the pacing and plotting of a Beauty and the Beast story, it's also really original. This is like Beauty and the Beast if you had like a very unsettling haunted house. And I really liked that. Once again, her main characters are great for me. So this is Bryony. She loves to garden. And she used to be from a rich family, but now she lives in a poor situation. It's very fairy tale-esque sort of thing. But like the first line of this book, because you're primarily in Bryony's like perspective, it's like third person limited. The first sentence is, she was going to die because of the rutabagas. I read that sentence, and then I sent it to my friend Sarah Reeds, because she did a first sentence challenge on her channel. I'm like, listen to this first sentence. This is fantastic. And like, there's just so much character and sass in the voice of everyone. The banter between her and the Beast, phenomenal. Loved it. She can write character interactions and light romances in a way that make me feel as invested as if it's a steamy romance. Because this is, again, like Nettle and Bone, not a steamy romance. You don't get more than a kiss, like, if that's what you want from fantasy romance. That's not what this is. But in terms of, like, they're developing friendship and how they fall in love, it's just, yes. I'm obsessed. I'm about to throw everything out on my TBR and buy all of the other books in these, like, covers that I don't even really love, but I actually love the quality of this book. It is incredibly comfortable to hold. Like, I really like that. So yeah, this was exactly what I wanted to read on Valentine's Day, and it made me want to read. I was at work today, and it just stared at me, and I just wanted to read it. It's very frustrating. So I ended up doing 2 escapist things, which was lovely. And I actually probably finished this before the other ones, but I wanted to save it because we're going to go into what I'm reading next. And it made more sense in my head. But I finished Tower of Midnight by Robert Jackson Bennett and Brandon Sanderson. Why are these so long? These are so freaking long. And I like this one. I'm annoyed that this scene takes place in, like, this much of the book at the very, very, very end. That's annoying to me. There is a thing, and there is a relationship reveal at the end of this book. I'm not going to say names or anything, but it happens. And it is out of left field. I have been reading this series since 2019, and at no point was this ship made aware to me. I'm calling shenanigans. I'm calling shenanigans. Anyways, that is really classic Robert Jordan, but I don't think I'd had that much whiplash in a relationship since earlier on in the series. So yeah, this was fine. It's really long. At the end of this one, it also reveals a new plot development that I'm like, how are we in the climax of this series and we're introducing a new plot development? We have so many things to wrap up. How is there another new thing, like a brand new thing? And there's a brand new, like, magical device that was used to nerf a different part of magic. There's a lot about Wheel of Time that's just very lazy to me. And also so overwritten. Like, oh my god. Which brings us into currently reading Memory of Light. I am 11 chapters in, 10 chapters in, which gets me to page 240 in the hardback. I don't know how much it would be in the paperback. And it's so long. It's so long. I mean, I'm liking some of it. There are things happening with characters, and then characters get to come together again, and, like, those things feel good. I like those things. I am still disliking at the end of the last book how something new was revealed. We spent a lot of time with characters I have never met in a meaningful way before. Keyword being meaningful. I'm sure their names were dropped at some point earlier on, whatever. They were not main point of view people. I don't even think they were main point of view people in the slog. Like, they were not important, or at least they were like, I couldn't differentiate them from any of the other side characters. You know, they were not that important. And suddenly, I'm spending like 50 to 100 of these pages on these new people dealing with this new problem that I'm just like, so many things. And where there have already been like so many action scenes that all blend together. And I'm not even at the chapter that everyone talks about that's just like the longest battle scene ever. Like, I don't actually think it's longer than the one I read in Bone Hunters in Malazan, which I really like that chapter in Malazan. I don't know if this is probably not going to compete with that because I think that one was done very intentionally well and had a lot of payoff. This one's going to be probably like one of the climaxes of the story, so it'll have a different type of payoff. But like, the action scenes have already just started washing over me and mean nothing. It just feels like there's just so many Trollocs. There's just so many. Anyways, yeah, I have liked some of the stuff, though. There's been some good conflict resolution stuff, but I think definitely handled in a very Sanderson way. Like, that's where I can really feel Sanderson's, like, idea of handling politics in a fantasy book, having read a lot of Sanderson. Like, using the ideas of Jordan, but, like, the framing and setup of the narrative. This book is very heavy, which is why I'm, like, holding it on my shoulder. So, that's, you know, a thing. This is too long. This is too long. I don't agree with Sanderson that whatever Robert Jordan had left written for him needed to be split between 3 books. I think 2 books. I think. Or if all those things were important, there was a whole crossroads of Twilight that things could have been folded into. I'm just saying. Another book I've been reading, Africa Risen. We did take a week off, so I don't have as many things to talk to you about since last time, because we only read like 3 stories, I believe, but I really liked one of them. The other ones I don't really have many thoughts on, but Ghost Ship by Tananari Do. So Tananari Do is a horror author that has been on my radar for a while, especially because of Brie at the Locked Petition. She does Blackoween each year. I'll have her linked down below. And people tend to read Tananari Do around Halloween, and then she's also always recommended for that. And I've just been like, I need to try some of her stuff out. And when I picked up this collection, I saw there was going to be a story by her, and I was very, very excited. And this was called Ghost Ship, and it was so unsettling and great and good. And if that's how she approaches a short story, I am ready for a novel, because my only complaint about the short story was like, I wanted more. Not that it wasn't a complete story. I think actually the story accomplished what it wanted to do. That was fine. It was more just like I was enjoying being there. And so if she had wanted to write more words, like sometimes if a short story becomes like 30 or 40 pages, I'm like, you better have a reason to be this long. Otherwise, I would have rather you had written a different project, you know? And this one I think was only, I actually don't even know how many pages it was. I think probably like 15. And I could have handled 30 or 40 pages of it. It was great. The idea was we're in a future world, like future our world, and our main character is from, a country in southern Africa. I think it might be South Africa, but I'm not positive, so don't quote me. And she's traveling to America with smuggled cargo. And she's traveling to America because she's essentially a slave in Africa now in this like kind of new type of capitalism slavery. And although in America there's actually becoming less and less diversity because of the bigotry and stuff, she would be more free there. But this limbo space on the ship is like this ideal scenario. And then things go weird on the ship, and we kind of go from there. And I just really liked it. So still continuing this collection. We only have that much left. So by the end of the month, we'll probably have finished this. So working on this next week, obviously. Oh, if I could check in next week and be like, I am done with the Wheel of Time, glory. Would be glorious. But the issue is I have to actually sit down and read this. But that is my main priorities. I think I'm going to sit down and work on this. I still have 2 more obligation reads for the month and then 1 buddy read. And so the buddy read I'm going to start working on because I keep forgetting about it because I don't have a physical book of it. And I even forgot to put it on my TBR. So I'm saying it now. I'm reading Lone Woman by Victor Laval with Bethany and Mara and Jocelyn. We haven't really started yet, but we've like talked about starting it. And so this is a new horror by Victor Laval. I've read the first chapter. And it's one of those classic, you're just thrown into a really unsettling situation, and the main character's perspective is purposefully not thinking about how we got to this situation. So I'm excited to actually like sink into that more. So I'm going to work on that, and it'll be very tonally different from Wheel of Time. And also I can read that with my eyeballs now that I'm in more of a reading with my eyeballs kind of mood. I also have Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk, which I was interested in reading that or T. Kingfisher. But I went with T. Kingfisher because I wanted to win. And, like, T. Kingfisher is favorite author status now. It's been confirmed. I'm, like, literally trying so hard not to just buy every book right now. Like, truly. I don't have shelf space. I'm not reading them right now. But, man, I just love... She gets me. I even read the acknowledgement section, and I'm just like... I get you. We're getting to, like, Jemison status of, I'll read your grocery list, T. Kingfisher. Like, I'll do it. Like, it's crazy. But that's why I didn't read Even Though I Knew the End. Because, like, C.L. Polk is still I don't know yet. I haven't read any of their works. I want to like their works. I just haven't. So we have that, which is more going to be a mystery noir with hopefully strong relationship components. And then once I finish Wheel of Time, we're going into Empire of Silence. That's what I've decided. And so I don't know how much of that I'll get to within the next week, but that's like what's on my radar at the moment. Barring me, Evie did send me an ebook of another T. Kingfisher, and I have a short story collection by T. Kingfisher, and I could also just, do that and love myself. There's a chance. There's always a chance. So yeah. And also, I should pick this back up again now that I'm a little less mental health and physical health sad. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's what I've been reading. Let me know what you've been reading, doing, watching, playing, crafting, anything you would like to share down below. If you want to leave an emoji, leave a rose because of the new T. Kingfisher that I read. And otherwise, if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.